I will work in her place. She is very sick, says 10-year-old boy at bus terminal. Ethan Miller was just 10 years old when his life changed completely. His mother, Sarah, had been hospitalized for 5 days at the county hospital with pneumonia that was worsening by the hour. The boy was alone at home trying to find a way to get money for the expensive medicine she needed. That's when he decided to go to the Central Bus Station in New York City, where his mother had worked as a cleaner for 8 years. Wearing her blue uniform, which hung loosely on his small frame, and carrying the bucket of cleaning supplies he knew so well, Ethan approached the temporary jobs counter. I will work in her place. She is very sick, the boy said with a firmness that impressed the clerk. Michael, the employee in charge of the section, looked at the curly-haired child with determined eyes. For a moment, he thought it might be some kind of cruel joke, but something in the boy's serious expression made him hesitate before sending him away. What's your name, son? Michael asked, lowering his voice. Ethan Miller. My mother is Sarah Miller. She's cleaned the bathrooms in Section B for 8 years. You can check the records. The clerk typed the name into the system and indeed found the woman's information, an exemplary employee who had never missed a single day in all those years. Michael was intrigued. And where is your mother now? At Mercy Hospital. She has severe pneumonia and needs very expensive medicine. The doctor said without treatment, she could. The boy's voice trembled, but he quickly steadied himself. She could get worse. At that moment, Richard Thompson, the head of cleaning services, appeared behind the counter, a man in his early 50s known for his strictness and little patience for employees' personal problems. What's all this commotion? Richard asked, eyeing Ethan suspiciously. Mr. Thompson, this boy says he's Sarah's son and wants to work in her place, Michael explained. What nonsense is this? We don't hire children. Get out of here, boy, Richard ordered, pointing to the exit. But Ethan didn't move. Instead, he stretched out his small hands toward the two men. Look at my hands, he said firmly. Michael and Richard leaned in to see. The boy's palms were calloused, with small burns from cleaning chemicals and marks from hard labor. I've already been doing my mother's work in secret during the early mornings, every day from 3 to 6 before the staff arrives. I know how to clean every bathroom, every room, every hallway in this bus terminal. Richard grew angry hearing this. You're telling me a child has been sneaking into the bus terminal at night? This is serious. I'll have to call security. I didn't sneak in, Ethan defended himself. My mother brought me a few times when she had no one to leave me with. She taught me everything. And when she started getting sick 2 weeks ago, I began helping her so you wouldn't notice she was unwell. Dear listener, if you're enjoying this story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing, a woman's voice interrupted the argument. It was Mrs. Margaret, a 70-year-old woman who visited the bus terminal every week to see her daughter in Atlantic City. She had approached after overhearing the conversation. Excuse me for interrupting, but I know this boy, Margaret said, pointing to Ethan. He helped me carry my heavy bags 3 weeks ago. He refused money, saying his mother taught him to always help elders. Ethan looked at the woman and smiled shyly. He remembered her perfectly. She was one of the passengers his mother always greeted warmly. Mrs. Margaret, do you remember my mother, Sarah? The boy asked. Of course I do, dear. A hard-working and very polite woman. She always greeted me when I passed through the hall she cleaned. Margaret turned to Richard. What's happening with her? Ethan explained his mother's situation again, and Margaret became visibly emotional. As a widow and retiree, she knew well what it meant to face hardships alone. And how much do you pay his mother? Margaret asked Richard. That's none of your business, ma'am, the supervisor replied sharply. $800 a month, Ethan quickly said. But the medicine she needs costs $300 a week. I need at least $1,200 this month to buy everything. Richard realized the situation was escalating beyond what he wanted. Several people began gathering to understand what was happening. He decided to act strategically. Listen here, boy, I can let you work, but only temporarily until your mother returns. However, since you don't have a work permit or the legal age to work officially, I can only pay $400 a month. Ethan felt his heart sink. It was less than half of what his mother earned, but it was still money. He was about to accept when Margaret intervened again. Hold on. What you're proposing is child labor exploitation. The boy would do the same job as his mother but receive half the pay, she said, pulling out her phone. I'm recording this conversation. Richard grew nervous. Mom, don't interfere in matters that don't concern you. This is an agreement between the company and the family. The agreement is with me, yes, Ethan said desperately. I'll take the $400. It's better than nothing. Margaret began recording despite the supervisor's protests. She knew this could be useful later. During his first official week of work, Ethan impressed everyone with his dedication. He arrived at 5 in the morning and worked until 2 in the afternoon, the schedule he'd arranged with Richard, so he could visit his mother at the hospital. The boy knew every corner of the bus terminal and had developed his own cleaning techniques, learned by watching Sarah. It was on the third day that Jennifer, a vendor at the terminal snack bar, noticed something troubling. Ethan never stopped for lunch. She saw him working non-stop, drinking only water and refusing any offers of food. Ethan, aren't you going to eat today either? Jennifer asked when she saw him cleaning the tables near her stand. I don't have money for food, Mrs. Jennifer. I'm saving everything for my mother's medicine, he replied simply. Jennifer's heart ached. She had 3 children of her own and couldn't imagine a boy his age carrying such a heavy burden. Come here, sweetheart. You're having lunch with me today, and I won't take no for an answer. Ethan tried to refuse, but Jennifer insisted. As the boy ate a sandwich and drank juice, she watched him devour the food. It was obvious he was starving. How long has it been since you had a proper meal? She asked gently. Since my mother was hospitalized. But it's okay, Mrs. Jennifer. What matters is her getting better. That afternoon, Jennifer spoke with other vendors at the terminal about Ethan's situation. Robert from the newsstand, David from the candy shop, and Patricia from the pharmacy were all moved by the story. That boy is sacrificing too much, Patricia said. Yesterday he came here asking about the price of his mother's medicine. When I told him the cost, I saw his eyes fill with tears. Let's organize to help this family, Robert suggested. We can take turns feeding the boy and maybe pitch in for his medicine. Richard, however, wasn't at all happy with the attention Ethan was getting. He started assigning the boy increasingly difficult tasks, hoping he'd either quit or make a mistake that would justify firing him. Ethan, besides the bathrooms, I want you to clean all the ticket booth windows too, Richard ordered one Thursday morning. But Mr. Richard, my mother never cleaned the ticket booth windows. That's the afternoon shift's job, Ethan replied respectfully. Now it's your job too, and I want everything sparkling by noon. Ethan didn't complain. He grabbed the cleaning supplies and got to work on the windows. To Richard's surprise, the boy developed an efficient technique, using old newspapers he got from Robert and a mix of water and vinegar he'd learned from watching his mother clean mirrors at home. The windows turned out spotless, and several passengers complimented the work. Richard grew even more irritated. It was during that week that a well-dressed man started visiting the bus terminal more often. William Campbell was an industrial cleaning business owner who had meetings in the area. He began noticing the efficiency and dedication of this boy working so diligently. William was intrigued when he saw Ethan organizing the cleaning supplies in a systematic way he'd never seen, even in specialized companies. The boy sorted products by surface type, created optimized routines, and even improvised tools when something broke. Excuse me, could you show me how you make that mirror cleaning solution? William asked one day. Ethan was surprised by the well-dressed man's interest. It's easy, sir. 2 parts water to 1 part white vinegar. My mother taught me vinegar cuts through grease better than any expensive product. William was impressed by the boy's technical knowledge. He started asking more specific questions about cleaning techniques, and Ethan answered with a wisdom that amazed him. Did you learn all this from your mother? William asked. Yes, sir. She always said doing a job well was a matter of pride, whether it was mopping floors or running a company. She taught me every job has its dignity. William was moved by the boy's mature response. That night, he couldn't stop thinking about Ethan's situation. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. Ethan's situation took an unexpected turn when, in his second week of work, 2 women in uniforms showed up at the bus terminal looking for him. They were social workers from Child Protective Services, alerted by an anonymous tip about child labor. "Ethan Miller?" asked the older social worker, a grey-haired woman named Barbara. Ethan was mopping near the ticket booths when he saw them. His first instinct was to run. He knew if child services took him, he wouldn't be able to work or care for his mother. "No, I don't know anyone by that name," Ethan said, trying to step away. "Wait, sweetheart, we don't mean you any harm. We just want to talk," Barbara said gently. But Ethan panicked. He dropped the cleaning supplies and bolted toward the terminal exit. The social workers chased after him, but the boy knew every corner of the station. He managed to hide behind the counters of Jennifer's snack stand, who noticed the commotion and approached. "What's going on, Ethan?" she whispered. "They came for me, Ms. Jennifer. If they take me, who'll look after my mother?" Jennifer understood immediately. She stepped out from behind the counter and went to talk to the social workers, who had lost sight of the boy. "Are you looking for Ethan?" Jennifer asked. "Yes, ma'am. We're from Child Protective Services. We received a report that there's a child working here under inappropriate conditions." "And what exactly did you come here to do?" "Take the boy away from the only source of income he has to care for his sick mother." Barbara realized the situation was more complex than she had imagined. "Can we discuss the case? We'd like to better understand the family situation." Jennifer called Ethan, who reluctantly emerged from his hiding spot. With her by his side, he felt a little safer to talk. "Where do you live, Ethan?" Barbara asked gently. "In Brooklyn Heights, with my mum, but she's been hospitalized at Mercy Hospital for almost 2 weeks now. Do you have any other relatives? Grandparents, uncles, any guardians?" Ethan shook his head. "It's just the 2 of us. My dad left when I was 3, and my grandma passed away last year." Barbara took notes in her notebook. The situation was delicate, a child completely alone, caring for a sick mother, with no family support system. "Ethan, do you understand it's dangerous for a child to work? You should be studying, playing. I know how to read and write, ma'am, too. My mum taught me. And I can play after she gets better. Right now she needs me." The determination in the boy's voice moved even Barbara, who had seen many difficult cases throughout her career. At that moment, the merchants from the terminal began to gather. Robert, David, Patricia, and others had noticed the commotion and decided to step in. "Excuse me, ladies," Robert said. "Are you here because of Ethan?" "Yes, sir." "And you are?" "We're merchants here at the terminal. We know this boy and his situation. Before you take him away, there are some important things you should know." Patricia stepped forward. "This boy isn't being exploited by the merchants. On the contrary, we're trying to help him. The problem lies with the cleaning supervisor." "How so?" Barbara asked. "The man is only paying $400 for the boy to do the same work he paid $800 for his mother to do. And on top of that, we've discovered something very serious," Jennifer said. Richard, who had been listening from a distance, approached nervously. "What are you making up now?" "No lies, Richard," Patricia said firmly. "Yesterday, while organizing my old receipts, I found something interesting." She pulled some yellowed papers from her bag. "These are receipts for medication Sarah bought at my pharmacy a few months ago. She always paid in cash, counting every dollar. But in her last purchases, she started asking for credit, saying her paycheck was delayed." "So what?" Richard asked, sweating. "The interesting part is that the bus terminal's records show no payment delays. I checked with Michael from Human Resources." Michael, who had also approached, confirmed. "It's true, Sarah never had a delayed paycheck. In fact, after reviewing the records, I found that for months, money has been deducted from her salary without clear justification." Barbara realized she was facing a far more complicated case than she had anticipated. "What kind of deductions?" "According to the papers Ethan himself showed me, deductions for property damage, late work, lost materials, things that never happened," Michael explained. Ethan, who had been silent until then, pulled a small notebook from his pocket. "My mum wrote everything down in this notebook. She said one day she'd need to prove she wasn't crazy." Barbara took the notebook and began flipping through it. Page after page of detailed notes about wrongful deductions with dates, amounts, and descriptions. It was a meticulous record of months of exploitation. "Richard Thompson, can you explain these deductions?" asked Barbara. showing some pages from the notebook. Richard tried to justify himself. Sarah was a problematic employee, always absent, did sloppy work. That's a lie, Ethan exploded. My mother never missed a day. Even when she was sick, she came to work, Michael confirmed. According to the records I have here, Sarah has perfect attendance. 0 absences in 8 years of work. At that moment, William Campbell, who had been observing the entire discussion from a distance, decided to step forward. He had taken some photos and made notes about the situation. "Excuse me, may I join the conversation?" said William. "I'm a businessman in this industry and have been following this young man's work for some time." Barbara looked at the well-dressed man with curiosity. "And what do you have to say?" "First, I want to commend you for investigating this situation. Second, I'd like to offer my help to resolve the issue in a way that benefits the family." Richard grew even more nervous at William's presence. "Who are you to interfere in company matters?" "My name is William Campbell, owner of Campbell Industrial Cleaning, and I'm very interested in hiring this boy's mother once she recovers." The statement left everyone stunned. Ethan looked at William with hope in his eyes. "You know my mother?" he asked. "Not personally, but through her work, yes. I've observed the techniques you use, and it's clear you learned from someone very skilled. Besides, the way you speak of her tells me a lot about her character." William turned to Barbara. "Ms. Social Worker, may I suggest a solution for this case?" "I'm listening." "First, this man here," he pointed to Richard, "must return all the money he wrongfully deducted from Sarah. Second, I'd like to offer her a formal job with full benefits at my company. Third, I can arrange a full scholarship for Ethan at a private school." Ethan couldn't hold back his tears. For the first time in weeks, he saw real hope. "What about the boy working here?" asked Barbara. "That has to stop immediately. Ethan must return to school and be a child. I can fund a preparatory course so he doesn't fall behind." Richard tried to argue. "You can't just shut down my operation like this. I have rights too." "You have the right to return the money you stole and leave before I call the police," William said firmly. Margaret, who had witnessed everything from the start, approached the group. "I recorded everything that happened here today. I also have the recording of this man's initial exploitative offer to the boy." Barbara took Margaret's contact information. "This will be very useful for the report. Thank you, ma'am." The social worker turned to Ethan. "Sweetheart, you understand you can't work here anymore, right? You need to go back to school." Ethan nodded, but still had a concern. "But what if my mother needs me when she leaves the hospital?" "We'll support you both through her entire recovery," Barbara assured him. "And with Mr. Williams' offer, you'll have much more stability." William took a card from his pocket. "Ethan, I want you to visit your mother today and tell her everything that happened. Tomorrow, I'll go to the hospital to speak with her personally." The boy took the card with trembling hands. "Thank you, Mr. William. I don't know how to thank you." "You don't have to thank me, Ethan. You've taught me a lot about dedication and a child's love. Now it's time to let the adults take care of you." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing, that afternoon, Ethan rushed to the hospital with his heart full of hope. When he reached the room where Sarah was staying, she was awake and feeling a bit better. "My son, how was work today?" she asked in a weak voice. Ethan told her everything that had happened, from the arrival of the social workers to William's proposal. Sarah cried when she heard about Richard's exploitation and the kindness of the merchants and William. "Ethan, are you sure this man is trustworthy?" she asked, concerned. "I am, Mom. He treated me with great respect and seems to know a lot about the work you do. And best of all, I'll be able to go back to school." Sarah held her son's hand. "My dear, I'm so sorry for everything you've gone through because of me." "Don't say that, Mom. I'd do it all over again to help you, but now everything will be all right." The next day, William kept his promise and showed up at the hospital. Sarah was amazed by his offer, a salary of $2,000 a month, full health insurance, meal vouchers, and opportunities for professional growth. "Why are you doing this for us?" Sarah asked. "Because your son reminded me of values I'd forgotten existed, and because I believe people like you deserve better opportunities." William also kept his word about Richard. With the help of a lawyer, he ensured Richard returned all the wrongfully deducted wages, which totaled over $3,000. The merchants at the bus terminal organized and created a relief fund for the family during Sarah's recovery. Jennifer coordinated a campaign that raised enough money to cover all the medications, with some left over for Ethan to buy school supplies. Margaret, who had been key in exposing the situation, revealed a surprise. She was a retired journalist and decided to write an article about their story for a local newspaper. The article generated a lot of positive attention and even more help for the family. Over the next 3 weeks, Sarah gradually recovered. Ethan returned to school, and on weekends he visited the bus terminal to thank everyone who had helped. Robert always greeted him with a smile. "How's school going, champ?" "Really well, Mr. Robert. The teacher said I'm at the right level for my age, and Mr. William hired a tutor to help me catch up on what I missed." Jennifer always made sure to offer him a snack. "You're growing, Ethan. You're taller than when I first met you." "That's because now I can eat properly every day," he replied with a smile. Patricia always asked about Sarah's health. "Is your mother taking her medications correctly?" "Yes, Mrs. Patricia, and she's doing much better. The doctor said she can go back to work next week." Richard's situation had a fitting resolution. Besides having to return the money, he was fired from the bus terminal. Michael temporarily took over the cleaning supervision and implemented new procedures to ensure such cases wouldn't happen again. William fulfilled all his promises. He enrolled Ethan in a good quality private school and hired tutors so the boy wouldn't fall behind. He also arranged a larger apartment for the family in a better neighborhood. But perhaps the biggest transformation was in William himself. Inspired by Ethan and Sarah's story, he created a program at his company to hire people in vulnerable situations, offering not just jobs, but also professional training. 3 months after all the chaos, Sarah was finally able to start working at William's company. She was assigned to train other employees, sharing her technical knowledge and work ethic. "Sarah, you have a natural talent for teaching," William said during a meeting. "Have you ever considered taking a supervision course?" "Mr. William, I've always dreamed of furthering my education, but I never had the opportunity," she replied. "Well, now you do. The company will pay for a technical course in administration for you. What do you think?" Sarah was moved. At 35, she would have the chance to fulfill an old dream. Ethan also thrived in his new environment. At school, he excelled especially in math and science. The private tutor William had hired was impressed by his learning ability. "Ethan has a very organized and practical mind," the tutor told Sarah. "He should consider engineering in the future." The boy also kept in touch with all his friends from the bus terminal. Every Saturday, he and Sarah made sure to visit the station to talk with Robert, Jennifer, Patricia, and the others. "You saved our family," Sarah would always say. "We'll never forget your kindness." "It wasn't kindness, Sarah," Jennifer would reply. "It was justice, and it was Ethan who taught us the true meaning of family." The story took even more exciting turns when, 6 months later, Ethan created a school project about labor rights, inspired by his own experience. The project was so well done that the school decided to present it at a county science fair. "Ethan, would you like to present your project at the bus terminal?" his teacher suggested. "It would be very meaningful to do it in the place where it all began." Ethan was thrilled with the idea. He spent weeks preparing a presentation on the importance of labor rights and how a community can come together to protect the most vulnerable. On the day of the presentation, the bus terminal was busier than usual. Besides the vendors and employees, William, Barbara from the Child Welfare Council, Margaret, and even some journalists who had heard the story were present. Ethan, now 11 and visibly more confident, stepped onto a small makeshift platform near the ticket counters. "Good afternoon, everyone," he began in a clear voice. 8 months ago, I was right here in this same place, desperate to save my mother. I was just a child trying to do an adult's job." The audience hung on his every word. "Today I want to talk about labor rights, but also about something even more important, the power of community. When someone is in trouble, they need more than laws to protect them. They need people who care." Ethan pointed to each of the vendors. Mr. Robert taught me that information is power. Mrs. Jennifer showed me that caring for those in need is everyone's duty. Mrs. Patricia proved to me that small actions can have big consequences. He turned to William. Mr. William taught me that success only matters when it's shared. And Mrs. Margaret showed me that we should never stay silent in the face of injustice. Sarah, sitting in the audience, discreetly wiped away tears. My mother always told me that every job has its dignity, Ethan continued. But I learned here that every worker also has their dignity, and that dignity must be respected. Ethan explained how unfair deductions worked, how to spot signs of workplace exploitation, and what basic rights every worker has. But the most important thing I learned is that when a community unites for a just cause, it can change people's lives, he concluded. My love for my mother gave me the strength to fight, but it was the love of this community that gave us a new chance at life. The presentation ended with a warm ovation. Barbara approached Ethan afterward. Ethan, have you ever thought about studying law? She asked. This country needs lawyers like you. I haven't decided yet, Mrs. Barbara, but I know I want to do something that helps other families like ours, he replied. William walked up to Sarah. Sarah, I have a proposal for you both. What do you have in mind? How about the two of you becoming ambassadors for our company's social program? Ethan could give talks at schools about children's rights, and you could train supervisors on how to treat employees with dignity. Sarah was surprised. You really think we could do that? I'm certain you have a real and powerful story to tell, and you speak from the heart. A year after the whole ordeal began, Ethan was unrecognizable. Not just physically, he had grown taller and gained weight from proper nutrition, but most of all in his posture and confidence. He still visited the bus terminal regularly, but now as a studious young man who inspired other boys in difficult situations. Whenever he saw a child struggling at the station, Ethan made sure to talk to them and guide them on where to find help. Sarah had also completely transformed. With her technical course in administration, she was promoted to supervisor at Williams' company. But more importantly, she became a role model for other working women facing hardships similar to what she had endured. Sarah, you've become so much more than I imagined when I hired you, William said during the company's annual meeting. You're not just an excellent professional, you're a leader. Thank you, Mr. William. But all of this was only possible because you believed in us when no one else did. The friendship between Ethan and the vendors at the bus terminal grew even stronger over time. Robert began teaching Ethan about small business management. Jennifer taught him about cooking and customer service. Patricia explained medicines and first aid. You're preparing me for life, Ethan said one day. We're giving you the tools your parents couldn't, Robert replied. But the character? You already had that. Margaret became like a grandmother to Ethan. She took him to the theater, museums, and always talked to him about the importance of fighting for justice. Ethan, you have a special gift for communication, she said one day. Have you ever thought about becoming a journalist? Mrs. Margaret, I want to explore many things before deciding. Mr. Williams said that when you have opportunities, it's important to take them all. Ethan and Sarah's story began inspiring other families. William officially created a program at his company called Second Chances, offering jobs and training to people in vulnerable situations. Barbara, from the Child Welfare Council, started using their story as an example in her trainings on handling complex child labor cases. The answer isn't always just removing the child from the situation, she explained to new social workers. Sometimes, you need to understand the root of the problem and work to solve it in a way that benefits the whole family. 2 years after everything began, Ethan was in high school and excelling in all his classes. He had decided he wanted to study business administration with a focus on social responsibility. I want to learn how to build companies that don't just make a profit, but also transform lives, he explained to William during a conversation. You know you'll always have a place at my company, right? William said. I know, Mr. William. But first, I want to learn a lot so I can repay everything you've done for us. Sarah has also continued to grow professionally. She finished her technical course with the highest grades in her class and started a degree in human resources management. "Mum, you're shining," Ethan said when Sarah received an honorable mention at college. "It's because I can finally be who I always dreamed of being, my son. And all of this started with your courage that morning at the bus terminal." The bus terminal also changed for the better. Michael, who permanently took over as cleaning supervisor, implemented an employee appreciation program. Wages were adjusted, rights began to be respected, and a complaint channel was created to prevent cases of exploitation. Ethan's story taught us that a fair work environment benefits everyone, Michael said during a meeting with the staff. The terminal's vendors formed an informal association to help other families in need. Whenever they identified someone in a vulnerable situation, they organized to offer support. "We discovered that helping others also does us good," Jennifer said during an interview with the local newspaper. Margaret continued writing articles about inspiring stories and became a kind of chronicler of the small yet grand stories of the city. "Ethan's story reminded me why I became a journalist," she wrote in one of her articles. "To give a voice to those who don't have one and to show that heroes do exist, and they're often just 10 years old." 3 years after it all began, the most emotional moment of the saga arrived. Ethan was graduating from high school as the top student in his class. The graduation ceremony would be held at the bus terminal itself as a way to honor the place where it all started. "Ethan Miller, high school graduate with an overall average of 9.8, announced the school principal. When Ethan stepped onto the stage to receive his diploma, the entire bus terminal erupted in applause. Robert, Jennifer, Patricia, William, Barbara, Margaret, and dozens of others who had followed his journey were there to celebrate. "I'd like to thank all the people who turned the worst moment of my life into the beginning of a new story," Ethan said into the microphone. "I learned that family isn't just those who share your blood. Family is whoever stands by your side when you need them most." He looked at Sarah, who was in the front row with eyes full of proud tears. "Mom, thank you for teaching me that work brings dignity, but education sets you free. Today, I know I'll be able to help other families like ours." Ethan turned to William. "Mr. William, thank you for showing me that true success is when you can lift others up with you." He pointed to the vendors. "Mr. Robert, Mrs. Jennifer, Mrs. Patricia, you taught me that a united community is stronger than any hardship." Finally, he looked at Margaret. "Mrs. Margaret, thank you for teaching me that injustice only wins when good people stay silent." The ceremony ended with Ethan being carried on the shoulders of his friends from the bus terminal, a scene that moved even the passengers just passing through. That evening, during the celebration dinner William organized, Ethan made an announcement that surprised everyone. "I've decided what I'll study in college," he said. "What, my son?" Sarah asked. "I'm going to study business administration, but I want to specialize in social economics. I want to learn how to create businesses that solve social problems." William smiled. "You know you'll always have my support for any project you want to pursue." "I know. And I already have an idea for my first project. I want to create a support network for families of workers in vulnerable situations, using bus terminals as support points." The idea excited everyone. Barbara volunteered to help with the legal aspects. Margaret promised to promote the project. The local merchants committed to being the first partners. "Ethan, how many cities are you thinking of starting this in?" asked Robert. "In as many as we can. If it worked here, it can work anywhere where people are willing to care for one another." 4 years later, when Ethan was finishing college, the Community Transit Support Project was already operating in 12 towns outside New York City. Each location had its own network of partner merchants, volunteer social workers, and business owners willing to provide opportunities. Sarah became the project's general coordinator, applying all the experience she had gained at William's company and in college. "Mom, do you remember when I said I'd work in your place?" Ethan asked during a visit to the original bus terminal. "How could I forget? That was the day that changed our lives. Now I realize that in a way we're both working together, not cleaning bathrooms but cleaning up injustices." Sarah hugged her son. "And doing it with the same dignity we've always had." The bus terminal where it all began received a commemorative plaque for the Community Transit Support Project. The plaque was unveiled at a ceremony attended by local officials, representatives from other towns in the program, and all the friends who had been part of the journey. This plaque doesn't just celebrate a social project, the mayor said during the ceremony. It celebrates proof that great transformations begin with small acts of courage and love. Ethan, now 21, was graduating from college and had already been accepted into a master's program in social economics. "Mr. Miller, do you have plans to expand the project to other states?" a journalist asked during the plaque's unveiling coverage. "We do, but we'll always keep the essence. It's the local communities that make the difference. We just provide the model and technical support." William, who was now Ethan's partner in the project, stepped up to the microphone. "I'd like to say that the Community Transit Support Project has already helped over 300 families in 2 years of operation. But the most important thing is that it proves capitalism can have a social conscience." Robert, at 70, became the spokesperson for the project's merchant partners. "We've learned that helping others is also good for business," he said. "When a community thrives, everyone thrives together." Jennifer, who expanded her diner and now employed 3 people, always got emotional in interviews. "Ethan taught us that children aren't problems to solve, they're potential to develop. Every child we help today could be the Ethan of tomorrow." Patricia became an official volunteer for the project, offering guidance on medications and first aid to the families it assisted. "It's so rewarding to see that scrawny boy I once knew become a young man transforming the country," she said. Margaret, at 75, became the project's official chronicler, documenting every story of resilience. "I've covered many stories in my career, but none have moved me as much as watching Ethan grow. It's proof that journalism really can change lives." Barbara continued working at the Child Welfare Council, but now used the Community Transit Support model as a reference for similar cases. "Ethan's case changed how I work. I learned that sometimes the solution isn't removing the child from the problem, it's removing the problem from the child's life." The end of the story. So, what did you think of this touching story? Tell us in the comments which part moved you the most, and if you know any similar stories. Don't forget to like the video so more people can discover inspiring stories like this one, and be sure to subscribe to the channel.